So hi, this will be another Dehancer video. Similar kind of to the video, well, the previous video of the film Dehancer. This will be actually on the photo version for Photoshop and Lightroom. They're set out a little bit differently, but the background and the kind of the effects are very, very similar. If you want to go into a little bit more of colour and colour history, that was in my previous video. So this one's probably going to be a little bit shorter and we'll just get right into it. And I've picked a couple of images we can go through. The images I've picked I have edited ever so slightly, but I just wanted to add a little bit more and show you what we can really do with it. Just before I get into it, there is an app for Apple. Unfortunately, the Android app isn't out quite yet at this time of release, but hopefully I'll be able to get my hands on that because that seems like a really nice thing along with Lightroom Mobile, because that just seems to be the way that everybody's editing now. So let me start with the first image. So first things first with this image, I have obviously edited it. I've edited it in black and white. It just seems to work a bit better. I probably could have maybe kind of clone a couple of these things out and stuff like that, but for the purpose of this tutorial, I really don't see the point. So if we just go into Dehancer and let me just show you how this all works. Right, let's start with nothing on and let's zoom out a little bit. As you can see, we have all, if I just close all these, we have a similar setup to what we have on the video side of it. I'm just going to turn these off. On your left hand side we have profiles and presets, which I'll go into a little bit in a second. We have your histogram along the bottom. You can turn that on or off, and you can also go to one-to-one view or even bigger, but let's just keep it like that. These are all the things you can edit with. Again, film developer, your prints, halation, bloom, vignette, all the kind of things you'd expect if you have used the one for film and then moving on to the one for photos. So first thing I want to go through is the difference between profiles and presets. You have pretty much the same kind of film types all down here. Well, you do have the exact same film types down here. Presets, if you just watch it on this right hand side, if I click one of these, it'll turn everything on and it'll adjust all the settings to what Dehancer thinks it should be for this preset. Obviously then Vivid Turner, 500D, Fujichrome, Velvia, etc, etc, etc. But now profiles, even though it has, if I just turn that on, it has the same things. I'm just going to turn all this off again. But it just has almost just the colour portion of it without everything else going on. I think sometimes Dehancer is a little bit heavy-handed with its kind of effects and things like that. I understand they're trying to emulate what they're looking for, but for me, to kind of marry that modern and old film aesthetic, I think it needs to be somewhere in the middle. So what I'm going to do is start on profiles, because I want control. I want to do everything on the right hand side all myself, and I'm going to be working in a bit more subtle than what I would normally do. So let's pick, what should we pick? There we go, let's go for Vivid. Yeah, let's go for Vivid. So again, it adds this kind of colour which you would get from it. And you push and you pull there. Let's just reset that to 0. There we go. And if I go through all these separately, so source, obviously exposure is fairly straightforward. Temperature, tints, defringe, all that is kind of very, very straightforward. The stuff you'd find in Photoshop or in Lightroom anyway, just maybe under slightly different names. Film developer is where your contrast is and your colour boost. Again, we're not going to use that one either. film compression just takes away the highlights ever so slightly, and you can also change your white point on here. So let's just bring that up just a touch, and I think we'll just a bit more tonal range. Expand has your black point, so I'm just going to maybe bring that down, give it a bit more contrast. And then print would actually be what you printed your negative onto. I went into a little bit more detail on that in the previous video, so if you do want to learn about that, go and have a look at that. 2383 is always my favourite just because it looks gorgeous, and then again we still have the same exposure, contrast, colour density, saturation, which obviously isn't going to do much on this image. Colour head does what it says, kind of changes the colour of them. If we go into a bit more green or a bit more magenta, let's just go a bit crazy on here. Let's add a bit of red. Your shadows are in here. Again, that's colour in the shadows and colour in the midtones as well. Film grain, again, is what it is. It says on the tin. So we can add grain, change the size of it, and change the amount. Personally, I'm not really much of a fan of film grain. It is what it is. I can understand why it's there, but I don't really like it much. Then you've got halation. I don't think you'll be able to see it really much in this image because there isn't really. There we go. See, just on the highlights here. See if I just. And again, I went into it a little bit more in the first video, what halation actually is. This is where you can probably go a bit too crazy. Maybe ever so slightly, just a little bit of subtlety to it. Probably not the right image to have, but again, just show you it works. And then bloom. I'm trying to change the diffusion on it a little bit, knock that down again. Let me just go into here. You can see it on this bit here. See how that's kind of just changing ever so slightly. And then obviously vignette is fairly straightforward. And there we go with that one. If we just click OK on that. What I would say is always copy the layer so you're actually editing onto a fresh layer. As you can see with this here, it basically just puts it on the first layer I had. So this next image, I'm going to copy the layer, and then I'm going to go into Dehancer. Just make that full size. Again, I'm going to go into, I'm just going to make sure all these are turned off. First, there we go, don't want any of them on. I think for this one, I want a bit more punch. So let's have a look. Is that gonna do it? Ectochrome. Ooh. I think that's probably my choice for this one. Maybe just warm it up a touch. Ever so slightly more. I'm just watching this histogram just at the bottom. Then maybe a little bit more contrast just to give it that bit of a punch. Then let's just go into print. Let's turn on. Let's film log. 3513. Let's go with that one. We're just keeping a little bit at the bottom here. Then halation. Again, I don't think I really want. Yeah, actually, that probably looks quite nice saying that. Alright, that's a little bit different. And then a little bit of bloom. Again, I probably don't want quite that much, so I'm just gonna bring it down a touch. and then just a slight vignette. Click OK on that one. But then what I could do, again, because I've got it on a separate layer, I can add it to a mask and change obviously maybe if I just wanted just a little bit, obviously just on the side, obviously that's ridiculous, but if I just wanted a little bit on the sides. So there's that one. So next one is a very different image, obviously it's full of colour. This is my local kind of woodland with the new bluebells that have just come out. So let's go to filter, Dehancer, and Dehancer film. That's kind of annoying. I've got to make it full size every time. Right, so first thing I'm going to do is turn all these off again. But now if I think it's just a little bit too much, because I have it in a separate layer, I can actually just bring it down ever so slightly. So from very, very green to almost autumnal kind of colour. And again, if I wanted, let's just add a slight gradient on here. I'll tell you what, let's just go the other way. There we go. From the start we had very, very quickly, and we've got, it just gives it a little bit more depth obviously because it's got that film feel. So that was very, very quick introduction into the Dehancer for photo. Basically it comes as obviously a package for Lightroom or Photoshop. Very, very straightforward, I should say, and easy to use. If you do have any questions, please put them in the comments below. Again, from the last one, I'm not going to say I'm an expert in this, but I have played around with it quite a bit and kind of know what most things do now. Like I said, I am no expert. The guys at Dehancer are very, very happy to answer any questions you may have. But I hope that, hopefully that kind of helps if you are kind of tempted to get it. I know I really enjoy kind of playing around with it. It just adds that extra little bit, maybe not even as a film emulation, but just adds that little bit of kind of variation you have rather than just editing a photo the same way every time. Until the next one, thank you very much.